hello there.
When these are made, sometimes they are made like Romans, and this is Roman's prop, and I can go get and put electronics in it. That's a flash gun that you're holding. And then Dave Parkin, which you also mentioned, and both of these are amazing and very, very close in detail and in accuracy for a New Hope Kenobi. But they're very different lightsabers, even though they look very much the same with some coloration and weathering differences. And I'd like if you would talk about what that difference means and how makers approach it and what it means when they approach one versus the other.
Do you mean in terms of like static versus FX?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, let me start off. I would like you to talk about static because you own more statics than me. I will touch on FX, and I guess I'll touch on static, but you know more about it. When someone is designing a FX saber, which means that it is able to have electronics installed inside of it, there is some modifications you obviously have to do to the saber to make the electronics fit and make them work. And sometimes that comes at the price of some accuracy going away from the saber. They have to, I'm trying to think, like, they have to redesign like a section of the grenade because originally it was too thin. This is just an example. This part was fully solid and you lose a little bit of diameter by shaving it down to make it smaller and make it fit. It's just small things like that that might slightly lessen the accuracy in total if you're going for like being a complete accuracy buff. I know there's some things about the mom that are inaccurate compared to obviously like a Dave P. But I, off the top of my head, I couldn't really tell you about it. I know Mojave had touched about it in one of his videos when going over all of his heroes. But that's probably the best way to. Sometimes initially what you wanted to say, if they're making an FX run, they're specifically going to be building around the electronics while trying to keep the accuracy as high and top tier as possible. But sometimes they have to make some sacrifices to make those electronics work.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that when you see a maker, and so let's be clear that the manufacturing processes are still the same today. So when someone's making these two replica Kenobis, they still have to machine the grenades. They got to machine the boosters. They got to make the hand wheels, injection molded acrylic. All that stuff still has to happen. The real difference in how things really unfold is that one has to have that cavity and the other does not. And I think with the static, the reason I own so many statics is one, I just don't feel a need to have to install everything. I don't feel like that's important. And I think that over time, I'm going to want to install less and less of all of my stuff. I just don't feel like everything has to be installed. But at the same time, some of them I really, really want installed. And it makes a difference. But yeah, so when a manufacturer, or not manufacturer, but when a designer is putting together a replica, they make a choice if they want it to be installable or if they want it to be static. Now, if two sabers looked identical because of the heroes that are made on and you see on screens, they don't have effects put inside the middle of them, and so in the middle is not hollow. So it's going to be naturally a little less accurate if you make an FX saber just because it's hollow in the middle. It's not going to weigh the same and some other minor differences. But usually, like you said, other concessions have to be made, whether it's the emitter might be a little bit taller, like in the Creepy Uncle, which you can't really tell, but it is, to make the blade stick in better. Or the neck might be a little longer or shorter, or something might have to change so that you can get all the electronics that you need, get a speaker to come out the back end. You might have to put holes in the end so that you can actually hear what's coming out, from the speaker's perspective. So yeah, a lot of little things that you got to change. And that does impact accuracy, but those are things that the designer will have in mind before they get started. And they'll tell you when they're making the run, this is going to be a static. It's for putting it on a shelf and looking at it. I'm trying to make it look as close to screen accuracy. Or the opposite. I'm going to be FX and, I'm going to get it as close as I can, considering the light.
I think people do a damn good job of both, honestly.
Agree.
I think there's some really talented people who do a very good job at both. And there's also people who do separate categories.
I mean, if I put these two together, this Roman and this Dave P, I mean, there are people that will disagree with me out there. But if I put these two together, I don't think FX versus static separates them in terms of that. I really don't. And it's because they both are almost exactly the same. But it's different with this saber because naturally these pieces and parts are hollow. So not a lot of concessions have to be made to get a proper FX Kenobi. Some companies will make the transistors buttons. Okay, they're not buttons. And so that's inaccurate, but sometimes they do that. And that's what an FX person might do, or an FX designer might do. And sometimes I think we talked about this wind vane. It's fixed on another one that's made for FX. This wind vane should be able to go up and down. And why that's important, if you look at the only photos that we really have of the Chronicles, the Chronicle photos that we have of the Kenobi Saber, the wind vane is in a very specific position. So if you ever wanted to take pictures, like take it out in the desert and take some photos and try to recreate scenes or whatever else, you can't adjust your wind vane to get it in the right spot, and it'll look wrong. And those are little details that matter. But in this particular case, between these two, one is static and one is FX, and I don't think that separates them in terms of.
Not when it comes to a lot of the Roman stuff, to be honest. I mean, that's something we can get into more detail about, but yeah.
We will.
Another happy landing.